Hello everyone and welcome to my honest, as unbiased as possible review of the game Anthem. Before we begin, I would like to express that I'm playing this game on PC, and unlike some video game journalism groups out there on the internet, I've actually played the game in which I'm writing and recording this review about. Now let's begin with a list of topics that I want to cover for clarity and credibility later in case I missed a point or something. Feel free to leave me a comment discussing anything that I've missed, and I would love to respond to you as soon as possible. I want to go over the gameplay, I want to go over visuals, connectivity, some critiques and criticisms, and some closing thoughts. Just a very basic, simple video. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Starting with the gameplay, the first thing I can say from the perspective based on other games I've played, the system of javelins that they use feels very much like Warframe. The high mobility that they use and good movement definitely makes me feel also like I'm playing Warframe, or some instances like I'm playing Destiny. It just feels very smooth, and the hack and slash style of gameplay with guns as well, depending on what javelin that you choose, definitely feels very good. Also, I very much enjoy the free roam style, which reminds me of the Expedition version of Monster Hunter, and it also feels like Destiny simply because of the style of the game that it is currently. And the kind of power suit that you use definitely also makes me feel like Warframe still. So for those of you that have played those games, you can experience that same kind of comfortability. And of course, there's events happening in the world that's open that definitely feels like Destiny. There's just lots of different things that really make me think that this game is designed for people that like those specific sets of games that I've mentioned. And of course, I'll touch a little bit more on what I think about the gameplay heavily later in this video. Visually, I would say that the game is stunning. With ultra graphics running on my current setup, I can honestly say that the graphics are just, they look great. They look really good, and I very much enjoy them. And of course, with every game, I definitely suggest turning off stuff like bloom or motion blur. Just turning those things off can definitely make the game look even better, especially if you're on a PC that can handle higher FPSs. My computer can definitely handle 144Hz with the 1080p graphics, which I think looks great. And for those of you that are running in 4K, I haven't quite tried it out at that rendering scale, but for 1080p, 144Hz, it looks fantastic, especially on ultra graphics. Connectivity, I would like to say that even though I didn't have any issues, I will open my criticisms with this part as a key point, because I have heard from a lot of friends that have had significant amounts of issues with trying to log in and play with each other. And a lot of people are invited about the invite a friend session, and a lot of people have had issues with trying to even get that to work. So playing a game that's based basically around playing with your friends or being in an open world kind of 4-player co-op system, not being able to connect with one another is a huge scare, and definitely doesn't look good from a company perspective such as BioWare and EA. But I will talk more about that in just a moment. Now I want to talk about some of the criticisms that I think would make this game even better. And I'll start with connectivity. Like I said just a moment ago, not being able to connect with other people, I personally had no problems with it, but if other people are having significant issues with connectivity, then it makes it very difficult to show your game to the world and have people want to play it with you. If you want to make a game that is playable and fun and easy for friends to connect to one another and explore this world together, then you definitely want to have a game that actually is going to work. And having a demo where people can't even connect to the servers, people can't even connect to one another, and it's just overall just unplayable, is really scary for a lot of people. And you wouldn't want to play a game, I wouldn't suggest a game to someone if you can't even play it with your friends, if it's an all online game anyway. So that's something very terrifying, at least from my perspective as a player. I don't want to spend a bunch of money on a game, potentially not be able to return it, and also not be able to play it, period. That would just be really devastating. And it's a neat concept and a really awesome idea, but I wouldn't enjoy it. And that's my criticism for the connectivity. The game needs to be able to work, and people need to be able to try it out, and people definitely want to try it out before buying it. On to the graphics for my criticisms. I think that the graphics for 1080, 144Hz, if your system can run it just fine, you're not going to have any problems, and it's going to be great. But at the lower end of things, if you were to lower all the graphics, a lot of people still that don't have as powerful computers as the ones like I've got, or some other streamers or content creators use to produce this kind of content, you're going to show that you need to definitely be able to lower the graphics to a playable rate for other people at the general consumer levels. Not people that are investing over $3,000, $4,000 on their PC rigs. You want to be able to appeal to the other consumers in PC that will be able to afford to play this game and not have to turn the graphics up. or even at the lowest settings of the graphics, I've noticed that they're still a little bit on the high end, even for low graphics. It's pretty impressive that the low graphics are at that level. And if people are able to run that consistently and not have any issues, more power to them. But I think that with the connectivity, being able to play the game is very important for the general consumer. But I would like to say that my biggest point and key point is talking about the criticisms of the content when it is made easy or difficult. I think that games that just make enemies have larger health pools and do more damage per shot don't really make for good game difficulty increases. However, if enemies change what they do as gameplay gets harder, then that would make difficulty a lot more interesting, at least to me as a general consumer of the game. I've played lots of different games where you either get more enemies or larger health pools, and sometimes you'll get a new kind of enemy that does a new thing. Then they just add more of that enemy, more of that health pool to that same enemy that does the new thing. For me, if you just throw a consistent number of enemies that all do the same thing essentially, and you just increase their health pool, and you increase how much damage their bullets do, then I don't really get enjoyment out of feeling accomplishment. I feel like I'm doing the same recycled content over and over and over again until I get bored of it. And I really don't want to feel like that, especially with this kind of game. And one of my biggest examples that I would like to use, where you're fighting the Swarm Tyrant boss, and basically what happens is it looks like its health pool is divided into multiple sections. And on the hard difficulty of the game, the boss just does more damage and has a larger health pool. He'll have an ad phase where he leaves the battlefield and ads spawn, and you just kill the ads, and then the boss comes back and it does the same exact rotation of what it's doing until it ends. Even the weak points that you're supposed to hit and eventually detonate on the boss, you still do increased damage to those weak spot areas even after they've blown up, and there's no phase change. Like, nothing really changes about the fight. It's just the same over and over and over again until it dies. It doesn't really feel like difficulty. Now, I would like to, of course, hear criticism, because that's a more biased opinion on something that I find would be something that I would add to make the game more interesting. Like, let's say on normal difficulty it was just like that, but on hard difficulty the boss was actually going to have a new kind of thing where he traps a player and you have to save them, or he traps like 3 players and one person has to do something to save them, and then the raid wipes if they don't successfully save that person. That to me would be an increase in difficulty, and it would add some more interesting factors to the mission that you're trying to complete. So things like that I think make a game harder, not necessarily, oh, let's just turn up the difficulty. But again, that's a strategy that a lot of game devs have incorporated before, and I can't really say that that is something that I would say would keep a lot of people from purchasing the game or not. But for me, it would be something that I would definitely take into consideration when purchasing a game that's solely focused on player versus environment scenarios. And the reason why I say that is because I looked at the main area where you go and talk to people and how interactive and interesting, and everybody can look at you and everybody has a different kind of interaction when you're around them, and you can see these things clearly, and it's so interesting. But then when you go out into playing the game and you're doing the same kind of thing and it feels kind of repetitive and there's no new changes to the thing based on difficulty, it's just the same thing over and over again, that's where I start getting nervous about should I purchase this game or not. But tell me what you think. I definitely want to hear your comments down below about the kinds of things that you would like to see in this particular game, some things that you may agree with that I've said or disagree with that what I've said. Please go ahead and let me know in a comment below, and I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'm Aigey, and I'll see you in the next one.